against Bitcoin.
It's going up forever.
You're against Bitcoin, you're against freedom.
That the future of crypto and the future of Bitcoin will be made in the USA, not driven overseas. I will support the right to self-custody to the nation's 50 million crypto holders. I say this with your vote. I will keep Elizabeth Warren and her goons away from your Bitcoin. And I will never allow the creation of a central bank digital currency. And if you vote for me on day one, I will commute the sentence of Ross Ulbricht, who was sentenced of time served. If you want to really see something that said, take a look at what happened.
Welcome to Simply Bitcoin Live, the most watched daily Bitcoin live show on YouTube, Rumble, and X. Sit back, relax, enjoy the ride. We will be your guide through the peaceful Bitcoin revolution, the separation of money and state. Ladies and gentlemen, have a bit of a cold, so excuse my scratchy voice, but pretty historic weekend. I gotta say, I gotta put it bluntly, ladies and gentlemen, it's not a coincidence that the first Bitcoin president, the first president that he has a chance of winning the election was almost assassinated, and they literally missed by an inch. That's not a coincidence. Like, it wasn't a coincidence like when El Salvador passed the legal tender law and you had all the legacy media just attack this guy relentlessly. That's not a coincidence. The legacy media, the way that they covered this, like, thank God for Elon, thank God for X, because it was actually showing on what's going on, like what was actually going on. I'll show you all the headlines. Like, it was absolutely ridiculous the way they covered this. I released a poll over the weekend, and I basically asked everybody, I said, was the administrative state, was the deep state involved in this? And 77% of the people, I think it was like 700 people that answered, basically said that they do believe the deep state, the administrative state, was involved. So we're going to talk about that. What is the deep state? What is the administrative state? People see it as like this like conspiracy, like this, this like maniacal thing happening in the background. It's really not. It's pretty simple to understand. It's an unelected bureaucracy that remains in power regardless of who gets elected, that is funded by the fiat money printer, right? So the Federal Reserve is the source of funding for the administrative state. And these are the people that are behind the endless wars. These are the people that are behind the assassinations. These are the people that are behind the coups all over the world. These are the people. It's the administrative state, right? And what happened is that they missed, right? They missed. That's like going back all the way to JFK and what was happening there, right? Now you have RFK Jr., right, his nephew, going out and basically saying, like, yeah, it was the administrative state that murdered my uncle. It's getting out there. There's still files from the JFK assassination that have not been released. Why is that? It's been like 60 years. And if you think about what happened to Trump, right, they spied on his campaign. They impeached him multiple times. There was the Russia collusion story. There was all these things going on. There were some shenanigans during the elections, to say the least. They took him off social media, even though he was a sitting president. They raided his house with the FBI. They indicted him 4 times, convicted him of 37 felonies. And of course, his popularity continued to rise. So what is the next step? Assassination. And they missed. And I understand what maybe a lot of you guys are thinking. It's like, this is a Bitcoin show. What does this have to do with anything? It has everything to do with it. because Bitcoin, essentially what it is, it's the manifestations, the representation of the middle class, is the representation of the populist movements, the representation of the people. And what Trump is doing within the fiat political system is he's fighting against that, which is why I believe that eventually he was going to support Bitcoin, because, you know, it's kind of like match made in heaven type of thing. And that's why I believe that they try to take him out 48 days after he said he would, you know, protect Bitcoiners, protect the right to self-custody, free Ross Ulbricht, bada bing, bada boom, assassination attempt. And it's kind of interesting, like a lot of the details that are coming out, like how close the shooter was to the stage. You know, it leaves a lot of questions, you know, to be asked. But what I will say is this: they tried to kill the first Bitcoin president. Is that not the most Bitcoin thing ever, right? And the other thing also is Larry Fink seems to be continuing to come to our side. He went on national TV this morning and he was just dropping bombs. He's like, look, I read more about Bitcoin. I looked more into it. And, you know, I can't help but to support this thing even more. Right. So again, once again, the Overton window, ladies and gentlemen, isn't just shifting. It's absolutely exploding, and we're winning. Our movement is on the ascent. The freedom movement is on the ascent. The pendulum is swinging from this centralized world to this decentralized world. And the forces at B, whether you call it the deep state, the bureaucracy, the administrative state, they're trying everything in their power in order to try to stop this. But this weekend they failed. This weekend couldn't do it anymore. They couldn't stop it. And if you go for the king, you best not miss, because the king will get even stronger. And if you take a look at the polls, now he has a 70% chance of winning. So if you break it down, we now have a high probability that a pro Bitcoin president will be in the White House in 2024, heading into the 2025 bull market. If that doesn't make you bullish, I don't know what will. We're winning. Our movement is winning. We're unstoppable. I don't even know what to say, dude. It felt like a movie when it was happening over the weekend, Opti. When all this stuff was going down, I was like, holy cow. And it's crazy because people like Tucker were predicting this, and the media were just making fun of him. They were just saying that Tucker can't say this. That's impossible. But there's so many questions about the events. Like, there's so many questions about like the Secret Service. Apparently there are some like women on the Secret Service. People are questioning that. People are questioning the proximity from the shooter to the stage. There's a lot of questions to be asked. But again, like, I've been listening to so many like live streams and so much coverage on this. It's pretty simple. Like, look at the events, right? Like, look at how many things that they've done to try to stop Trump, and they weren't able to. And then that just leaves one option open. And that option, of course, is assassination. But unlike JFK, they missed. And by the way, they missed by less of an inch. And it was only because Trump turned his head in the last split second that it completely missed his skull. That was a 5.56 round. That would have exploded his skull on live TV, just like they did in the 60s. Because they're trying to send you a message. They're like, we are in control, but they missed, right? So, and also shout out to David Bailey and the Bitcoin Magazine crew, because he's still speaking at the Bitcoin conference. So I can't wait for that mother effing speech. That's going to be so epic, so freaking bullish. And my instincts are telling me something. I might be completely wrong here, but if he wants to really shake things up, drop the words Trump. I dare you, drop the words at the Bitcoin conference and the Fed. And the Fed, because that's the cause of all of this. That's the cause of all of this madness. It's the administrative state fueled by the fiat money printer. So if he really wants to end things, if he really wants to give power back to the people, back to the middle class, not the elites, it's very simple. And central banking and the Federal Reserve and their source of funding. That's how we win. So I don't know, major victory, but it was complete luck. And dude, what a political season to say the least. Anyways, Opti, what's your take on all this, bro? I can't believe this, dude. This is nuts.
Well, it was obviously a very crazy weekend to say the least. And I think the most incredible backlash that I've seen is just like the media perception of what happened. There is just like a huge divide from what you'd see on Twitter and what you see coming out of the corporate press, and then the news headlines that they ran the next day. Like it's becoming very obvious. Obviously, as Bitcoiners have known this for a while, but it's becoming very obvious that the corporate press is simply a propaganda machine, an extension of you could call it the deep state, the administrative bureaucracy, whatever you want to call it. Like, it's becoming very clear that the powers that be do not want another Trump presidency. And for all of us, like, individuals out here, like, I know a lot of Bitcoiners are apolitical and they're like, oh, I don't believe in politics, I don't believe in voting. I think it's starting to heat up to be a very, very interesting and heated election season. And, the fact that Trump's still going to speak at the Bitcoin conference, like I was saying when we first heard about that it's going to be an incredible speech. And now I think it's going to be even more incredible. And the Bitcoin conference in 2 weeks is going to be, I think, one of the defining cultural movements, not just for Bitcoin, but it's going to be talked about everywhere right now. And I think, of course, this is all good for Bitcoin. But yeah, man, this was an incredible vibe shift that I saw over the weekend. And now it's becoming more and more clear that all of us Bitcoiners are right. We're at the forefront of what's happening. And it's also very important for us to keep, cool, calm, and collective, and continue to show people that it's all about the money. It will always be about the money. It's about the money printer. This isn't a left versus right thing. This is an orange versus green thing. The whole thing we've been seeing and we've been covering for a long time, it's all backed by the money printer. The military industrial complex is all backed by the money printer. And now it's turning in on itself. And us Bitcoiners are the ones with the solution here. We're the only ones with the solution. So I know a lot of Bitcoiners don't like politics, but Bitcoin is the actual solution for all the things we're seeing. And the more that we continue to spearhead these conversations, and the more that other political pundits start to wake up to the fact that Bitcoin will change things, we're really, really crossing into the mainstream consciousness as Bitcoiners and everything that we've been talking about. So it's very important for us to stay on message and continue to beat the drum. It's about the money. This is a peaceful revolution. All you got to do is opt out, save in Bitcoin, and just watch the great Leviathan start eating itself. And I think this is what we're seeing. Like, the vibe shift is moving away from all of the, I don't even know if we can say it here, but I won't say it how I'd like to say it, but all the BS we've been forced to ingest, that's been shoved down our throats the last couple of years, it's starting to crumble. The fiat machine is crumbling. There's cracks in the system, and us Bitcoiners have the message. We have the solution. And so it's more important than ever to go out there and talk about everything we've been talking about for a long, long time. People taking back their sovereignty, their individuality. There is no savior here. Like, no one's going to save you, but there is a defining conversation happening right now, and Bitcoiners are at the front of this.
100%. And that's something also to understand. I think you nailed it, Opti, right? Is that as Bitcoiners, we detest politics. And I think rightly so, because we believe in the theory from the sovereign individual, where information technologies over the long run is going to make politics irrelevant, because it's going to of a major revenue source of the state. And that revenue source is currency debasement, right? And that will only leave direct taxation. And that will naturally dramatically decrease the size of government, right? So unfortunately, though, during the transition period, fiat politicians still play an integral role, right? Which is why Nayib Bukele is so important, which is why Javier Milei is so important, which is why, and I don't care, the dude almost got assassinated this weekend. This is why Donald Trump is so important, because they're facilitators. They're moving us towards this, right? If you have a pro-Bitcoin environment, it allows Bitcoin to thrive and do its thing. If you have an anti-Bitcoin environment, well, it's not going to stop Bitcoin. It's just going to make the Bitcoiners leave, get up and go to another place. But imagine the most powerful country on the face of the planet, the wealthiest country on the face of the planet. Now the leader and in pretty much 6 months or so is going to be a pro Bitcoin president if he can survive till then, really, to put it nicely. Yeah, that makes me incredibly bullish. So I understand that a lot of people find him divisive. At this point, I just don't care. We'll lay out the case for you guys, how sinister this has been, how the media played a crucial role in this, how they were completely complicit. It's absolutely disgusting. What Elon did was incredible, because the discussions that were allowed to happen, how crazy is that? Allowed to happen on Twitter would never have happened in Twitter 1.0. It would have never have happened. They would have just taken stuff down. But you were getting better news from Twitter than you were getting from the legacy media. The legacy media was spinning it. They were lying about it. It was insane.
Literally fake news.
Right? Like literally fake news, right? So we're going to cover all of that today. We're going to do kind of like an extended segment. So during the numbers, we'll kind of lay out all the things that have happened as they happened in terms of the attempted assassination on the first pro Bitcoin president. And then during the culture, we're going to talk a little bit more about the deep state, the administrative state, and we have the receipts for you guys so you guys could see what we're up against, because it is a monster. It's a Leviathan, but it can be taken down. You just have to go and attack its source of funding. What is its source of funding? The Federal Reserve. You attack the Federal Reserve, that thing falls down on its own weight because it can't support itself. Right? It doesn't produce anything. It doesn't create revenue. All it does is take. Right? So we're going to talk about a lot about that, just because of the events that happened over the weekend. Anyways, before we jump into it, I do want to give a shout out to our lead sponsor. And of course, I'm talking about the best place to build and buy your automatic self-custody Bitcoin stack. And of course, I'm talking about bitcoinwell.com. It's a publicly traded company coming out of Canada that recently expanded to all 50 US states. It's automatic self-custody. What does that mean? That means that you can't buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well unless you intend to take self-custody of your Bitcoin, which perfectly aligns with the Simply Bitcoin ethos of the separation of money and state. Every time you buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well, you earn Bitcoin Well points, and you can use those towards the contest, the Bitcoin Wishing Well. And we're going to do that right now. We're going to toss a coin into the Bitcoin Wishing Well, and this gives you an opportunity to win up to 1 million Satoshis. Oh, it's a big one today.
Damn,
so
I didn't have my wallet out.
First person to scan the QR code wins 2,100 sats. We're going to do it one more time. And again, guys, you buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well, you earn points, and you can use this towards the Bitcoin Wishing Well for an opportunity to win up to 1 million Satoshis. So guys, support self-custody by default Bitcoin on-ramps, the only one being in the United States, bitcoinwell.com. And you can get 3 tosses into the Bitcoin Wishing Well using promo code simplybtc. All right, everybody, let's get to the numbers. We have a packed show today. Let's check it out.
The Bitcoin numbers.
Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Is your seed phrase really secure? Stamp Seed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of just writing them on paper. Don't store your generational wealth on paper. Paper is prone to water damage, fire damage. You want to put your generational wealth on one of the strongest metals on planet Earth, titanium. Your words are actually stamped into this metal plate with this hammer and these letter stamps. And once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamped seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They're also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin with peace of mind for the long haul. Stamp your seed on Stamp Seed.
All right, everybody. Scan the QR code on your screen right now. It will take you directly to the Stamp Seed website, and use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on their website. Store your generational wealth properly. Stamp your seed phrase on titanium. At the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is 63,560. Sats per dollar, 1,573. Block height, 852,329. Blocks to halvening, 197,671. having estimate March 28th, 2028, total Lightning Network capacity 5,055 BTC, capacity value 321 million, realized monetary inflation 1.52%, market capitalization 1.25 trillion, Bitcoin gold versus gold market cap 7.56%. All right. So what is happening? What is happening? This is something that it's like our theme of the show. We will be your guide through the separation of money and state. But really what's happening, that's a more simplified way of looking at it. We're living through late stage fiat, right? The information, the lies themselves that you're getting from legacy media are suffering from inflation themselves. Love that Max Kaiser quote. But I call it the great disintermediation. What does that mean? The internet has enabled mass scale peer-to-peer communications. This is why it was such a big deal when Elon freed the bird. When Elon took over Twitter and he's saying, look, I want free speech. And I know a lot of people are questioning Elon and they're big fans of Nostr, but the reality is that Twitter has the network effect and Twitter has the vast majority of the world's populace in terms of people that are active on the social media platform. That's not to say that in the future Nostr can't take its place, but that's where we are right now, right? And when Elon took over Twitter and he made it more pro free speech and he allowed the rise of citizen journalism, independent content creators to flourish, what did that do? It allowed mass scale peer-to-peer communications. Before, that was impossible, right? Governments co-opted the handful of legacy media outlets. And what we've learned is that really they're propaganda outlets, right? They would put the USSR propaganda machine to shame, right? The state newspaper of the USSR was called Pravda, which if you translate that to English, it means truth, right? Which is kind of ironic, right? And how they would name it that way. But if you look at the New York Times, if you look at CNN, if you look at all these outlets, they're complicit, not only in what happened this weekend, but also the endless wars. Remember, it was the New York Times that sold the American public on the idea that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. It came out after the fact that it was the intelligence agencies that actually fed that journalist those ideas. It was the New York Times that covered up the Ukrainian Holocaust called the Holodomor, because they had this journalist called Walter Duranty who was stationed in Russia in the USSR at the time, who was providing cover for Stalin, right? So these legacy media outlets, which you are supposed to confide in them, you know, to like, okay, this is my source of news. What we've discovered in the internet age is that they're propagandists. And of course they hate Twitter because of that. But of course they hate us having the ability to communicate peer-to-peer. It drives them crazy because it was a handful of editors that got to decide what the truth was. That's insane, right? And remember, it was the New York Times that came out with the bogus article that, you know, they doctored the image and they were saying that Bitcoin mining was going to burn the environment. Right? Destroy the environment. Remember that. So they're complicit in this. The legacy media is complicit in the cover up. It's complicit. It protects the machine. It protects the fiat machine. Okay. So that's the first thing that the internet disintermediated. What we're about to start living through, right? You know, Trump supporting Bitcoin is the first inklings of that. Larry Fink, you know, El Salvador, you have all these countries mining Bitcoin, but this hasn't happened yet. But it's starting to. The great disintermediation of money, which is much more powerful. Look at how the state has reacted to individuals communicating directly peer-to-peer, right? It's driving them crazy. They fired Tucker Carlson, even though he was the most popular broadcaster on Fox. Why? Because he wasn't towing the party line, right? The next thing up is the disintermediation of money. And by the way, that is much more powerful because that is their source of power. And they are going to do whatever it takes to try to protect that. Anyways, I'm going to take you to, before we kind of cover, this weekend's events, I'm going to take you to a quote by President Nayib Bukele And it's a very, very powerful quote. The most cool detractors, the ones who are afraid and pressuring us to reverse our decision. Of course, he's referencing when El Salvador made Bitcoin legal tender, are the world's most powerful elites, the people who work for or benefit from them. They used to own everything in a way they still do. The media, the banks, the NGOs, the international organizations, and almost all the governments and corporations in the world. And with that, of course, they also own the armies, the loans, the money supply, the credit ratings, the narrative, the propaganda, the factories, the food supply. They control international trade and international law. But their most powerful weapon is the control of the truth. And here's where it is prophetic. And they're willing to fight, lie, smear, destroy, confiscate, print, and do whatever it takes to maintain and increase their control over the truth and everything and everyone. Now, moving on to Trump. They couldn't buy him, right? Trump is the only president that after he left office, his net worth is lower than before he came into office. If they couldn't buy him, they couldn't control him. If they can't control you, they go after you, right? And how did they go after him? Remember, they spied on his campaign initially. They impeached him twice. They did some funny things taking advantage of COVID in regards to the election. They banned him off social media. They raided his house with the FBI. They indicted him 4 times and convicted him of 37 felonies. And then 48 days after he said he would free Ross Ulbricht and protect the right of Bitcoiners to take self-custody, they tried to assassinate him. I mean, bro, like, come on now. Anyways, so let's move on to some interesting things that happened over the weekend, right? Because I do remember this. So, and another thing also, guys, that I want to mention, because I am going to be talking about the Democratic Party. I don't think the Democratic Party is, and shout out to the Progressive Bitcoiner for pointing this out. I don't think the Democratic Party is properly representing their constituents. I think that they are riding they are relying on the fact that their voters are not necessarily informed because they're still consuming legacy media. That being said, I do believe that regardless whether you're on the left or right, there's a lot of people on the left that support Bitcoin, that are proponents of Bitcoin, that are proponents of peer-to-peer communications, are proponents of freedom, are proponents of prosperity. So this is not a left or right thing. This is absolutely a party of orange, a party of Bitcoin, peace, prosperity, opportunity. The RNC, the Republican Party, has come out and said that they would protect Bitcoin, protect the right to mine, protect the right to self-custody, versus the party of green. The party of green is the party of central bank digital currencies. The Democratic Party is currently the party of green. They're anti-Bitcoin, they're pro-CBDC. That being said, I just want to give that a little bit of context there. Check this out. And you tell me if you don't think this is a little weird. So after Trump was convicted, the Democrats looked to strip Secret Service protection from Trump if he's convicted. Why would they do that? Now check this out again. RFK Jr., even though his uncle was assassinated, denied Secret Service protection. You know what RFK did? He's also pro-Bitcoin, anti-CBDC. Lots of coincidences, aren't there? Anyways, let's take a look at how the legacy media reacted initially with the shooting. And this tells you everything you need to know. Here is the first one from the Washington Post. Trump escorted away after loud noises at Pennsylvania rally. NBC, Secret Service rushes Trump off stage after popping noises heard at his Pennsylvania rally. Next one, USA Today. Trump removed from stage by Secret Service after loud noises startles former president. ABC News. Donald Trump escorted off stage by Secret Service during rally after loud noises ring out in crowd. Newsweek. MAGA responds with outrage after Donald Trump injured at Pennsylvania rally. CNN. Secret Service rushes Trump off stage after he falls at rally. The dude got shot in the fucking ear. He got shot in the ear. He started bleeding from his ear. Like, Elon says it best. The legacy media is a pure propaganda machine. X is the voice of the people. I 100% agree. Because on X, you were seeing in real time exactly what was happening. Now, why did this happen? Why did this happen? So they tried to take Secret Service away from him. They tried to convict him of crimes. They tried impeaching him. They tried lawfare. They raided his house. Everything that you can think of. And then why do you think it would cause someone to have so much hatred of this guy? Maybe, just maybe, it was some of the rhetoric that they were using over the past couple years. Now let's check out some of that rhetoric.
Of course, Trump is a Nazi time again.
Let's deal with Hitler, okay?
I don't think it's hyperbolic to say that. I mean, that is Mussolini, Hitler-like language.
Trump's affinity for Hitler was always covered under an umbrella of his stupidity.
Echoing Hitler's words.
Listen to this. Well, Hitler was duly elected.
That's right. Echoing the hateful rhetoric of Adolf Hitler.
It echoes Hitler.
That's the kind of language Hitler used in Mein Kampf.
About vermin and Hitler and Mussolini.
That's a horrifying clip. That's a fascist clip.
We're just going full on Hitler.
From Hitler's Germany.
We just need to say, for the record, that the term vermin was really effectively used by Adolf Hitler.
Echo dictators like Hitler.
With language evoking authoritarian figures like Adolf Hitler and
Adolf Hitler.
Donald Trump parroted the autocratic language of Adolf Hitler.
Talk about the brilliance of Hitler's generals.
Correct.
General Kelly, yes.
So if you tell your base that the guy that you're running against is a danger to democracy, if he gets elected, he's going to be a dictator. No, he's not only going to be a dictator, he's going to be Hitler. And you try to remove his Secret Service protection. What do you think is going to happen? And then not only that, when it happens, you try to cover it up. Like, this is why I feel bad for the left-wing base. This is what they're being fed. Like, they're not even being fed like what is actually happening. They're being fed bullshit. But this is what the legacy media is doing. They are complicit in what happened. And I would say they've always been complicit. And of course, because they missed, guess what? Now they're walking it back. Now they're saying we need unity. Here's a Zero Hedge article. It says Biden halts Trump is Hitler ads after assassination attempt. Why? Because it probably makes them look bad. Now, I was inspired a little bit after I saw what happened this weekend, and I said the party of fiat, which fuels the administrative state, is desperate. The propaganda isn't working anymore. The lawfare isn't working anymore. Today showed their desperation. They want to retain their godlike power of being able to create money for free that the rest of us have to work for. Our unstoppable movement is ascending. Freedom is winning. Now, here's the part where you guys come in. And this is what really separates Simply Bitcoin from a lot of the conservative shows. We actually have the solution to this, right? And the solution is Bitcoin. Its time has not yet come, but it's on the cusp. We're almost there. And this is what I said. I said Bitcoin's role in these historic times has just begun to surface. But my instincts tell me that it will be the crucial tool that we need to finally defeat them. Without it, victory is impossible. No more endless wars, no more central planners, no more mass-scale theft via debasement, no more slavery. We will not stop until the Federal Reserve is no more. We are going to win. The issue here, the administrative state, the deep state, is fueled by the Federal Reserve. It's fueled by the government's ability, their monopoly, their ability to create money out of thin air. If we really want things to change, we go to the source of their power. Here's Ross Ulbricht. This is a message from prison. He said, shock, fear, sadness, but eventually great relief. As I watch the man who pledged to free me from prison nearly die. I am praying for President Trump and the other victims. I hope something like this never happens. Now, let's talk a little bit about the situation. Right. Here is Blake Hall, and he says, I was the sniper employment officer for my battalion and led hundreds of combat missions. There was major security lapses in the security plan that allowed a shooter to engage President Trump from 130 meters, an easy shot. By the way, there was people that have already they already saw the shooter, and they were telling law enforcement and law enforcement did not take Trump off stage. I mean, it makes you question a lot of things. Like after the whole thing, I get what a lot of people are saying. Like, look, Nico, it's a conspiracy theory, blah, 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 blah. And they're bringing all this up. Look, after what happened with JFK, the majority of the American people no longer believe in their institutions anymore. They no longer believe in it. When you charge the leading political opponent with the crime, you can't help but to think corruption. You can't help but to think, I don't trust in that institution anymore. When no banker went to jail for what happened in 2008, but they're locking Bitcoin privacy developers in jail, forgive me if I don't believe what you have to say anymore. Of course you're going after Bitcoin privacy developers for political reasons. Why don't you treat the bankers the same way? They were charging all these exchanges with AML and KYC violations, but at the same time, you have giant banks like HSBC laundering hundreds of millions of dollars for the Mexican cartel. They get a slap on the wrist, they get a fine, but we go to jail. Forgive me if I don't believe you. Forgive me if I don't believe the official narrative. The official narrative, the one that they would like you to believe, is this. Trump escorted away after loud noises at Pennsylvania rally. I don't believe you. I don't believe you anymore. If it wasn't for X, we wouldn't have got the truth. And if it wasn't for Elon buying X, all these videos would have been pulled down. They would have been, oh, this is misinformation, right? This is really suspicious. 130 meters away in the perfect position, right? Like, look at that. You would think like security would kind of, know what the F is going on. And I'm not the only one to think this. Here's Elon Musk saying either it was extreme incompetence or it was deliberate. Either way, the Secret Service leadership must resign. Here's Jack Posobiec, and he says, how is a sniper with a full rifle kit allowed to bear crawl into the closest roof to a presidential nominee? I think that's a really, really important question to ask. And here's Sovereign Bra. This is, in my opinion, I know people might see this as like divisive and they might not agree with me when I say this. This is fucking divine intervention, all right? Just like the first country to make Bitcoin legal tender with the most popular president in the Americas, the name of the country is called El Salvador, the savior. Right? And of course, that's named after Jesus Christ. Trump literally turned his head 0.3 seconds before impact. And I'll let you guys see the image yourself. If he didn't turn his head, his head would have exploded on TV, just like what happened in the JFK assassination. You're starting to see a little bit of a pattern here, right? But guess what? They missed. They missed. They really missed. And because they missed, that creates an opportunity for us and the freedom movement and Bitcoin. Now, these are historic times. These are crazy, crazy times. And it's up to us to ask ourselves, what side of history are you going to be on? Are you going to be distracted by the whole left-right bullshit, the conservative liberal bullshit? Are you going to be on the side of Bitcoin? Are you going to be on the side of freedom? Are you going to be on the side of opportunity, of hope? Or are you going to be on the side of slavery? Are you going to be on the side of endless wars? Are you going to be on the side of nihilism, despair? What side are you going to be on? Because I could tell you what, the Republican Party is currently the party of Bitcoin, and the Democratic Party is currently the party of central banking. It's as simple as that. Is the Democratic Party properly representing their base? No. But look at what they're feeding their base. They're feeding their base bullshit. Trump fell because of loud noises. It couldn't be more blatant than that. These are historic times. There's this very famous quote. It's actually by Lenin, which is there are decades where nothing happens, and then there are weeks where decades happen. These are the moments right now. This is the fourth turning, ladies and gentlemen. And you as Bitcoiners are revolutionaries. Why are you revolutionaries? Because every time you take Bitcoin into self-custody, you are speculating, you are attacking their system, you are defunding it. You're saying enough is enough. I refuse to use a system that steals from me. I refuse to use a system that confiscates my wealth. I refuse to use a system that is political in nature. I refuse to use a system that is used to fund war, despair, and destruction. That's what it's about. So what side are you on? Are you on the side of freedom? Are you on the side of hope? Are you on the side of despair and destruction? What side are you on? I'm on the side of Bitcoin. I'm on the side of hope. And you know what? So is Donald Trump. And the other side, they're willing to fucking kill him for that. That is crazy. That is nuts. And you know what? You could say, you can call me a conspiracy theorist, but sorry, bro. I don't believe you at this point. Like, the facts are the facts. I've laid it out for you guys. Like, that is a very big coincidence, my friend. And every single, as soon as JFK said, you know, he was going to go after the CIA and the FBI, right? Like a month later, you really think it's a coincidence that 48 days later, after Trump said he'll protect Bitcoin and the right to self-custody, potentially threatening the Federal Reserve and freeing Ross Ulbricht, which is a martyr for our cause, you really think it's a coincidence that 48 days later, they almost blowed his brain out, shot him in front of national TV for the world to see? You really think that's a coincidence, bro? I don't think so. But you know what? They missed. And if you go at the king, you better not miss, because you're going to make him stronger. I can't wait for Donald Trump's speech at the Bitcoin 2024 conference. And I hope he says he's going to end the Federal Reserve, because that is what is really going to change things. And on the record, once again, Simply Bitcoin endorses Donald Trump for president 2024 and RFK Jr. for 2024. We do not endorse Joe Biden. Joe Biden represents the party of central bank digital currencies and the party of central banking. Therefore, the party of slavery. The Democratic Party is still the party of slavery. Nothing has changed. And I don't think their base know that, and I don't think they're aware of that. It's too much. We're winning. Let's keep on winning. Anyways, Opti, what's your take on all this, bro?
Oh, man. Well, not to rehash everything you said, because that was a great Nico Jones rant. Absolutely love it. It's not just a meme, guys. Nico Jones rants are epic. The biggest thing for me throughout this whole, what we saw on Saturday and what we saw on Sunday and what we're seeing now is just like we say it all the time about Bitcoin, that Bitcoin has a way of exposing incentives. And this event, in my opinion, is also one of those defining events that is exposing people's incentives and exposing, for lack of better terms, the evil that is the corporate press and the propaganda machines that everyone would consider mainstream media. The way that they responded, and again, you guys could say we're crazy right-winger Trump guys, whatever, but the meme of fake news is so strong in this next moving forward, the next, defining couple of months until the election, that is becoming very clear to someone that is, to quote Nayib Bukele, not drinking the elite's Kool-Aid. It's becoming very clear that the powers that be, the propaganda machines, the deep state, whatever you want to call it, they are actively working against the interest of the people they are supposed to look out for. And now it's becoming very clear. Bitcoiners have been on this front line for a long time. We've all been talking about this. I've been saying it on the show constantly about it. It still blows my mind that people think there's any semblance of legitimacy coming out of the institutions. And now we're seeing that late stage fiat crumble in real time. And it starts with the propaganda machines. Remember that fiat means by decree. It literally means do as I tell you to do. And the only way they're able to get away with this is because people believe in them, because people still trust in these institutions. But this is one of those defining moments in history where we're seeing that people are waking up to just the the mass lies that we've been fed, not only in the last 4 years, but the last, 100 years, basically. And it's becoming very clear to a lot of people that there is an active attack on your freedoms, on all of our freedoms, on our right to liberty, our right to prosper, our money. And it all goes back to the fiat machine. It all goes back to the money behind it. This is why we always say, fix the money, fix the world. And this is a crazy, crazy moment right now, which is why, JH in the chat said high road fields. I think it's more important than ever as us Bitcoiners, as freedom-minded individuals, as people that believe in libertarian ethos of, live and let live, that we maintain our calm, our composure, and we stay smart. We try to be as objective as possible. We try not to ostracize people, and we realize it's all about the money. And there is a way out of this. And we say it all the time. There is no political solution to this. Yes, I know we're going into political topics and everyone's like, oh, avoid politics. But this is where we are right now in the movie. Bitcoin is becoming a defining conversation. And of course, the powers that be are going to either paint us as bad guys or try to co-opt that movement. And this is why I think it's so important for us to continue to cover the propaganda wing that people think is objective news. And this is also the importance of like what we do here at Simply Bitcoin, what you guys do, having these conversations with your friends and families, what we do on Twitter of just constantly talking about the truth, exposing the lies, exposing their incentives, and proving that they are working actively against us. So this is, in my opinion, one of the most important moments right now. Like I was over the weekend feeling like there's a vibe shift. I've been saying for a couple of weeks now that like it feels like the pendulum swinging the other way and people are tired of to use the W word, the wokeness that we're seeing, and people want authenticity. They want truth. And I think this moment right now is one of those times where people are, whether they're on the left or the right now, they're asking themselves like, what is going on right now? And I think this is the start of it. I know all of us Bitcoiners kind of started with the same fundamental question, like, what is going on? Something is either broken or the system is designed this way. And, you can go into conspiracy theories if you want, but what we're seeing is just the blow of the fiat system and its incompetence. It's gross incompetence that we're seeing right now. And we're seeing it all play out in real time. And as Bitcoiners, we have the solution, we have the narrative, we have the movement. It just needs to get thrusted into the limelight. And I think we're seeing this happen. Like Nico said it earlier in the show, it's just not our time yet, but we have that time right ahead of us. And this is why I think when Trump goes to the conference, because he confirmed that he will be at the Bitcoin conference, like his speech is probably completely changed up. I'm sure it's going to be one of those defining moments. This is probably going to be the biggest Bitcoin conference in history. Not necessarily in attendance numbers, but in the amount of media attention that is going to come out from the Bitcoin conference in Nashville in 2 weeks. This is going to be a defining conversation that's happening on all media platforms, or on the flip side, it's going to be interesting to see if they don't talk about it. If they completely ignore what is said there, I think that is signal enough, because like, look, those headlines are absolutely incredible. Like the amount of spin that you're seeing from the legacy media right now is absolutely incredible. It's downright disgusting. Like if this was happening on the other side, you could only imagine what would have happened. But again, it's very important for us to stay calm, cool, collected. This is a peaceful revolution after all, but we know the source of the problem. We know the cancer. We know the root of the cancer here, and it's about the fiat money printer. That's where all this is coming out of. This is why Bitcoin is such an important topic, because it's simple meme. Fix the money, fix the world. Bitcoin itself won't stop everything from happening, but you start with the source. You eliminate the cancer, which is the fiat money. You implement Bitcoin, money that cannot be debased, that cannot be stolen, that cannot be redistributed, and then things start to work from there, and people start to take more sovereignty. They start to think long term. So this is a crazy moment in time right now, but it all goes back to the money. It's always about the money, and we're seeing that the powers that be are freaking out because they can no longer control the flow of information. And I think that's the most defining topic that we're having today. They can't manipulate the masses like they used to, and they're freaking out. And we know the classic meme that when you back an animal in the corner, that's when they're most dangerous. So this is why I'm telling everyone, you know, like, stay cool, calm, collected. We are in some crazy times right now, but we have the solutions, and it's just more important than ever for us to go out and have these conversations, show people it's not left versus right. It is orange versus green. And man, what crazy times. What crazy times. Also, I want to give a shout out to the super chat. Thank you, bro. Appreciate it. Mawad gave us 39 SAR. 1 sat equals 1 sat. Yeah, love that, man. Appreciate it. Thank you so much for supporting the show. All right, guys, before we move on to the next segment, I do want to give a shout out to our sponsor. And of course, I'm talking about the Pleb Party. The Pleb Party is the party that you're going to want to be at in Nashville. By the way, the Nashville conference is going to be crazy. That's where Donald Trump is going to be speaking, the first ex-president and potential future president to be speaking at a Bitcoin conference. This is the party that you want to be in the day before the conference starts. So it's a 12-hour open bar. That means that the drinks are included in the ticket from noon to midnight in Nashville, the biggest Bitcoin conference in the world, Bitcoin 2024. So you definitely want to miss this event. Confirmed attendees include Larry Lepard, Preston Pish, the entire Simply Bitcoin crew, James Lavish, Robert Breedlove, Mark Moss, Bubby, Tatum Turnup, Adam O'Brien. An amazing venue, a rustic automobile factory from 1910 with brick walls and tons of proof of work atmosphere. The last Pleb Party in Miami was sold out 8 days before. Over 1,000 Bitcoiners are expected to attend. Guys, you definitely don't want to miss the Pleb Party in Nashville. Scan the QR code on the screen if you want to go. Check the link in the video description. The tickets will sell out. The Bitcoin conference is selling out because Donald Trump almost got assassinated, but he's gonna still speak at the Bitcoin conference. So these tickets are going like they're selling out like crazy. You want to get them while supplies last. All right, everybody, let's hit the news. Lots to talk about in regards to BlackRock. Let's check it out.
The Daily News.
I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Foundation Devices. It's self-custody done right. They built a premium grade hardware wallet called Passport right here in the US. It's fully open source and verifiable. It's the most intuitive Bitcoin wallet designed with a UX reminiscent of a simple feature phone. So you will know how to navigate it and use it the moment you pick it up. Get your Bitcoin off exchanges and into your own hands in just a few minutes. Experience the peace of mind that comes with taking ownership of your own keys. After a massive sellout during Bitcoin Miami 2023, the Passport is back in stock at foundationdevices.com. Bitcoin only, open source verifiable, completely air-gapped security model, gorgeous design craft, premium grade materials. If you're thinking about getting your Bitcoin off exchanges, this is the one for you. Check out the Passport link in the show notes below to learn more.
Everybody, so let's talk about today's news. Big news. By the way, scan the QR code, check the link in the video description. Not your keys, not your cheese. Get yourself a Passport by Foundation Devices. By the way, if you use promo code SIMPLY, we'll get a discount. Anyways, so let's talk about today's news. Massive, huge. We just can't stop winning. They failed to assassinate our guy. Larry Fink is on legacy media. Guess what? He's talking the Bitcoin talk. Massive, huge, and all the proponents of central banking, the proponents of anti-freedom, the proponents of wars, they're having an absolute meltdown. They can't stop this movement. It's ascending. We can't stop winning. Anyways, so just check out this headline. Fink's flip, BlackRock CEO embraces Bitcoin. And also, by the way, the Trump pump, they failed to kill Bitcoin. They failed to kill Trump. Bitcoin pumps. I don't think that's a coincidence, just like I don't think it's a coincidence that BlackRock CEO embraces Bitcoin one more time, and also Bitcoin pumps. Anyways, Larry Fink, CEO of BlackRock, has publicly expressed a significant change in his stance on Bitcoin. Initially skeptical, Fink now views Bitcoin as a legitimate financial instrument and has referred to it as digital gold. This shift in perspective comes after Fink studied Bitcoin extensively. His endorsement of Bitcoin is notable due to BlackRock's status as the world's largest asset management company, managing assets worth $122 billion. This change in view from a predominant figure in traditional finance has sparked discussion and optimism within the cryptocurrency community. Anyways, let's check out what he had to say on the legacy media.
Now, I know you have been a leader in willing to embrace crypto. You have made it so that people can be in Bitcoin. We hear that you are thinking about Ethereum. These are incredible things. Now, BlackRock is not known as a gunslinger by any means, so you obviously must believe that this maybe is an alternative. Is this an alternative in order to be able, because of a deficit, maybe something long-term people should have?
Absolutely. As you know, I was a skeptic.
Yes.
I was a proud skeptic. And I studied it, learned about it, and I came away saying, okay, my opinion 5 years ago was wrong. Here's my opinion today. This is what I believe in today. I believe the opportunity today. I believe Bitcoin is legitimate. I'm not trying to say there's not misuses like everything else, but it is a legitimate financial instrument that allows you to have maybe uncorrelated, non-correlated type of returns. I believe it is an instrument that you invest in when you're more frightened, though. It is an instrument when you believe that countries are debasing their currency, debasing their currency.
You hear that? You hear that, ladies and gentlemen? That is this. This is what is happening. That's what winning sounds like. That's what winning. You hear him introduce that. You buy Bitcoin when you feel like your nation is debasing the currency. What do you think that's going to lead to? What is money? Why should the government have the ability to debase currency? Why am I forced to use that said currency? This is what winning sounds like. Anyways.
See, by excess deficits, and some countries are. I believe we have countries where you're frightened of your everyday existence, and if you have an opportunity to invest in something that is outside your country's control, then you can have more financial control. And so I'm a major believer that there is a role for Bitcoin in portfolios. I believe you're going to see that as one of the asset classes that we all look at. I look at it as digital gold, as I said before, and I do believe there's a real need for everyone to look at it as one alternative to, I would say, the optimism that I have in the world. If you want to hedge hope, Bitcoin is not an instrument for hope unless you're hopeful you're going to make a lot of money on it. But I look at it as a vehicle in which you're expressing your financial acumen in something that you're more frightened of the world, you're more frightened of your existence. And I believe there's a great industrial use for it. And I think a lot of people are missing that.
I couldn't agree more. I changed my mind about it when you did. You had been my thinking. It was like, you don't believe it, so I can't believe it. I want to thank Larry Fink for the message of optimism.
Thanks.
And also for a great quarter. Larry Fink is the co-founder, chairman, and CEO of BlackRock. I think the most important.
Did you just hear Larry Fink talk about hope in Bitcoin?
Dude, he found the opti way.
Man, dude, it's the virus is spreading. Our movement is on the. I can't say that enough. Like, our movement is on the come up. This is what winning sounds like. Yeah, this is incredibly bullish. This is insane. And if Trump is alive by the election, and if he wins the election, 2025 is going to be the bull year, and we're going to have a pro Bitcoin president in the White House. You have the CEO of the world's largest asset manager, speaking Satoshi's gospel on national TV. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know where the Bitcoin price is going after that, So I'm incredibly bullish on the world. I'm incredibly optimistic on the world. Bitcoin is clearly fixing things, but I think the battle to come, and I think that's the battle of the next 5 years, even though things have happened a lot quicker than I anticipated, but I think the battle to come, and it's not over until Julian Assange, check that one off, Ross Ulbricht, almost checked that one off, and Edward Snowden are freed, and also until a Bitcoin flag is over the Federal Reserve, and the Federal Reserve is a museum, right? It's not over until that happens, but we are one step closer. The Overton window is moving. When you have Larry Fink talking about the fact that, the federal governments are debasing the currency, and that's why people are seeking Bitcoin. Like, that tells me we're in the right direction, because he's exposing those very ideas to, the boomer class, and the boomer class does have, the lion's share of the world's wealth. So, man, it's just, it's a good episode, bro, but it could have been a horrific episode if it wasn't for a little bit of wind and literally an inch, right? So, it's crazy. It's almost as if it's divine, maybe. Anyways, Opti, what are your thoughts, bro?
Well, we are definitely in the best timeline. I can agree on that point. At this point, as a Bitcoiner, as someone that is freedom-minded, we're definitely in the best timeline possible. With that being said, before I go into my whole Larry Fink rant, of course, I'm as skeptical as everyone else about Larry Fink and his intentions and his, corporate buddies. But I think it's besides the point because, as we say here all the time on the show, Bitcoin is about aligned incentives. And yes, he's here for the gains. He even kind of joked about it that like there is no hope with Bitcoin unless you're making money off of it. So like he understands the incentive structure, the game theory playing out. But there was a few points there that I found very interesting. And I've been saying this for a while that, Jim Cramer was joking about the fact that he wasn't going to buy Bitcoin until Larry Fink came out and said he bought Bitcoin. And now he's like, jokingly, whether he owned some before or not, at least publicly, he's saying he would go out and buy Bitcoin. And this is something I've been saying. Someone in the chat said he's talking to the boomers and the elites. And ever since Fink came out, again, trust his incentive structure or not, trust the guy or not, the incentives of Bitcoin are aligned, and he understands the game as well. You stack Bitcoin. Of course, you want to see it do well. It's helping his company have a solid quarter like Jim Cramer was saying, but he has no more control than any one of us here on the Bitcoin network. Yes, he can accumulate a lot, but now he is fully aligned with ensuring that Bitcoin does well. Of course, there will probably be some opportunity to try and co-opt where the narrative is going, but now he's fully coming out and saying what us Bitcoiners have been saying for a while. Like the fact that Larry Fink is on public television saying that, yeah, hey, you might want to own something outside of the system if you don't trust where the system is going, if you don't believe in the system, maybe you want something that they can't control. And that's what we've been saying here on the show for a long time, that this is why we love Bitcoin. This is why our model here on the show is the separation of money and state. Yes, of course, there are people here that you may not fully trust. You may not fully believe that they're here for the best of the Bitcoin network, but their incentives are aligned to ensure that the Bitcoin network does succeed. And we're seeing this happen. So this is one of those, again, another defining moments where you're getting a very, very public endorsement of Bitcoin by someone that people still trust, that still people look to as calls for where the financial future is going. And, as much as we may not believe in what he's saying and we don't really care what he's saying, there's still a lot of people out there that when Larry Fink says something, they start to do the research, and we've been seeing this play out in real time. But I think to be on brand with who I am here, the fact that he's literally like quoting Saylor here of like Bitcoin is hope. Like if you want a future of optimism, he's quoting even Nico here. If you want a future of optimism and positivity, then you need to embrace Bitcoin. Like, this is going to make ripples. Of course, it's going to be slow ripples, but now everyone is starting to look at Bitcoin as a viable, he's kind of going a viable investment. But remember the clip that we played last week about Michael Saylor, where he's saying the same thing. I used to be a skeptic, and then I dipped my toes in and I became an investor. And then the more I learned about it, the more I became a full-blown Bitcoin maxi. And now we're seeing that the biggest fund managers in the world, the biggest asset managers in the world are looking at Bitcoin as a viable alternative, as something that they can store their value in. It's like Nico might have to play the shattering of the Overton window one more time, because this is where we are. Let's go. Like he literally said, Bitcoin is optimism. Like you want to choose optimism, you want to choose positivity, you want to choose hope, then you aren't a fiat maximalist. And yes, of course, he's here for the gains, but he's starting to read the writing on the wall. Like all of us have known that Bitcoin is the only viable solution. And really, like the fact that Larry Fink is saying that you can't trust the system, like that is revelationary for most people. Like he is basically the quintessential fiat shill. And even he is out there like, if you have these skepticisms about the fiat system, maybe you want something outside of the system. Maybe you want something that your country can't control. And man, what an incredible episode, Nico. This is crazy. This is crazy. This came out this morning. What do you say? There's no coincidences.
No, that's not my quote. That's some War Room Posse stuff.
All right, but what is it? What is it?
But there are no coincidences, but there are also no
No, there's no conspiracies.
But there's no conspiracies,
coincidences.
but there's also no coincidences.
The
So-
timeline we're seeing right now is incredible. We live in the best timeline.
Yeah. By the
Make
way,
sure-
Steve Bannon also he's in prison until the election, right?
Yeah, like make
so-
sure we continue to speak the positivity. We are manifesting Bitcoin to $10 million
Anyway,
per coin.
Dude, this is crazy. This is crazy. Jamesito said super chat $1.99. Appreciate it, bro. Thank you so much for supporting the show. All right, guys, we're gonna get into the culture segment. We're gonna talk about the deep state. We're gonna talk about the administrative state. We're gonna dive into it. We're gonna dive into the history. I know the show's running a little bit. We'll give it like a 20-minute bit. We're gonna dive into it.
We can maybe do a
because
little-
it's incredibly important to talk about this. What is this concept? Because you guys need to be armed with the truth, with the facts. What is it that we're up against? What is it that's happening? What happens when the separation in money and state happens? Like, what happens? What are the consequences to that? Beauty On was talking about it the other day. Essentially, the way that you should understand is very simple. Government has two sources of revenue right now, okay? It has direct taxation. You can only tax the populace so much, right? Because if you tax them too much, it's like a diminishing return. Like people just, there's only a certain amount of a tax they will pay for, right? Which kind of caps the level of the level at which the size of government can be. But there's a more sinister source of funding that is not agreed upon in the social contract, right? And that source of funding is the money printer. And because the US is the world reserve currency, right? Because they've psyoped the world into believing that for some reason 2% inflation is a fact of life and that's just the way that money works, they're able to get away with murder, essentially. The politicians, the bureaucrats and elite in DC have a godlike power of being able to create money out of thin air, right? They say, oh no, the treasury issues bonds and the free market there is no one on planet Earth that has the money to be able to buy those bonds. You know who buys them? The Federal Reserve. So like it's a racket. That's what it is. It's a racket. It hurts the lower and middle classes the most because the lower and middle classes don't have the means to save in assets. They're living paycheck to paycheck, right? So what happens? It drains the energy from the people and it gives it back to the government and it gives it back to the very wealthy that do have the means to save in assets. They're getting rich on paper, but their purchasing power isn't going any higher, right? So the wealthy are kind of like okay with it because they're like, yeah, my real estate prices have just doubled. It's not like the purchasing power is gonna go that way. That's not the case, right? But everyone else gets poorer. That is what the Bitcoin revolution is about. Of course, we came here to get wealthy. We came here to get rich. Number go up technology is extremely important. But at the same time, we have to remember this is a revolution. This is why it's so important to take self-custody. Anyways, I do have a shout out to our sponsors. They make the show possible. Of course, I'm talking about KABOOMRACKS. KABOOMRACKS is the most trusted place to buy, sell, and mining equipment. To check out their racks, scan the QR code. It'll take you directly to their Telegram marketplace where you can connect with a member of their sales team. They make purchasing their products easy and transparent. You could also sell your mining equipment with them, access their vast network of domestic and international customers when you sell your mining equipment with KABOOMRACKS. So guys, scan the QR code or check the link in the video description.
The Daily Culture.
So I also want to give a shout out to our sponsor, the Orange Pill app. Stack friends who stack sats. Join the 11,178 Bitcoiners that are currently on the app. If you're going overseas, you don't know any Bitcoiners near you, pull up the Orange Pill app. Has a really clever geographical feature, and it will literally show you the Bitcoiners that are near you, and it allows you to send them a message directly. This is the best way to reach me. If you have any questions, send me a message on the Orange Pill app. I don't answer messages on Twitter anymore. There's just too many of them. So reach me on the Orange Pill app. I promise I'll get back to you. Great way. Also join the Simply Bitcoin group chat in the Orange Pill app. It's awesome. So guys, if you want to stack friends, you want to stack friends who stack sats, you want to connect with fellow Bitcoiners, especially during the Nashville conference, you want to see any events near you, you have to download the Orange Pill app. It's the best resource for that. So check out the link in the video description or scan the QR code on your screen right now. Anyways, Opti, I see you have a tweet pulled up.
Yeah, let's go. Okay, so I'm going to quote Nico here, but really, this is just setting the stage for some videos that we're going to play today. So, Nico, was a tweet you did, on Saturday. First pro-Bitcoin president shot in attempted assassination. There are no conspiracies, but there are no coincidences. We've obviously covered this today, but we got this great meme here by BTC Speedboat, and he goes, "Strange indeed." And you got Lincoln Greenback, assassination successful. Kennedy trying to put the dollar on silver, backing by silver, assassination successful. Reagan with gold, assassination attempt. Now Trump with Bitcoin, and they put a Ripple sign here, so they need to update this, but assassination attempted. And we're seeing, of course, as we talk about on the show constantly, it's all about the fiat money printer. It will always be about fiat. This is why we say fiat is a money of war, of endless wars. It's no coincidence that since the Federal Reserve was created, it's been the bloodiest century ever. And now, as a Bitcoiner, we're trying to right the wrongs of the world and get people back, get the world back, get all the economies back on a hard money standard. And this is why we constantly cover not only the legacy media, but we constantly are now forced to cover politics, because politics is driven by the fiat money printer. And we got this great clip here, and then I'm going to throw it back to Eisenhower on the exact same idea, and then we'll have a little discussion on it. So here's Wall Street Apes, and he goes, former Speaker of the United States House.
Do you have the clip?
Yeah, I do. It's under here. Okay. I just want to set it up. House of Representatives Newt Greenwich says all the quiet parts out loud. So let's play this clip.
Trump is the most aggressive and competent opponent that the Franklin Roosevelt coalition has ever faced. They've run the country now since 1932.
Okay, so he's mentioning FDR, right? Since 1932, right? So this was around that same years when 6102 order, gold was made illegal, right? The growth of the administrative state, the growth of the bureaucracy, right? FDR was the first president that ran 3 terms, right? The only reason that he didn't win the 4th term is because he passed away. He had polio. Anyways, so just wanted to say that. But anyways, continue, Opti.
Built huge bureaucracies, huge sets of rules. They've paid off millions of people with taxpayer money. And all of a sudden, they have an opponent who's very serious about dismantling and replacing their corrupt system. They're terrified of him, and from their standpoint, breaking the law, rigging the game, whatever it takes, they're going to do to try to beat him at every level. The trial in New York is just one example. It's totally dishonest. I actually think that the judge in the New York trial and the students illegally occupying the building in Columbia University are really the same people. They're people who believe in breaking the law to impose their will on the United States. And I think that you're seeing a trial which is probably the most dishonest, most corrupt trial of any political figure in American history.
So it's not only the trial anymore, right? It's not only the trial anymore. Now you have an assassination attempt on top of that, right? Anyways.
Well, it's very interesting that, we've seen the deep state play this out throughout the modern history in America. They had the Nixon Watergate scandal, which is what we're seeing with the court cases. And now we're seeing that they're going the JFK route, which is a full, outright daytime assassination attempt. So you're seeing the deep state do their old tricks that we've seen them do a lot of times, because they're absolutely terrified. And here, going back, another historical example here, we have Eisenhower on the military-industrial complex.
This, by the way, just to give a little bit of context, this was Eisenhower's farewell speech, right? This is his last speech as president, and he was warning essentially about the military-industrial complex. Now, to kind of reference the Newt video, and by the way, Newt Gingrich was the Speaker of the House when the Republicans were in power during the Clinton administration. So just to kind of give you an idea, like, this isn't just some random anon on the internet talking, right? This is someone who, definitely, he was
seen the inside,
third from the top to being president. So it's someone who knows what they're talking about. Now, Eisenhower is going to refer to the military-industrial complex. The military-industrial complex was built up during World War II. You know what was also built up during World War II? You know that thing, if you're an employee in the United States, where they take away your taxes before they pay you? that was set up during World War II. A lot of the taxes and the tax code was set up during World War II. A lot of the bureaucracies was set up during World War II with the intention of beating the Nazis, right? The problem is that after the Nazis were beat, that whole system did not go away. It still exists. It hasn't disappeared, right? And what it's doing, of course, look at what's happening. It's kind of turning into itself, right? You can even use the word parasitic in nature. So here's Eisenhower warning about the military-industrial complex, which is alive and well today. This is why as soon as we pulled out of Afghanistan, left billions of dollars, as soon as that happened, what happened? War in Ukraine. Let's just send billions of dollars to fund this war, and we're just funding a war against the most nuclear-armed nation on the face of the planet, that being Russia. Let's just keep funding the wars. That is the military-industrial complex, which, by the way, is funded by, you know it, fiat. It's funded by the Federal Reserve. It's not a coincidence that both World War I and World War II happened after the establishment of the Federal Reserve in 1913. World War I literally happened a couple years after that. That's not a coincidence, ladies and gentlemen. Or this entire show is filled with a lush shit ton of coincidences, isn't it? Anyways, Opti, can you play it?
This.
I come to you with a message of leave-taking and farewell.
This speech did not get very much attention. When a new president is coming to power, as John Kennedy was, the spotlight was not on Dwight Eisenhower.
We have been compelled to create a permanent armaments industry of vast proportions.
There was a feeling at the time that this must have been written by some speechwriter who just sneaked into the speech.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
3 months ago,
okay, stop it right there.
We got.
So yes, that was Eisenhower essentially warning the nation of the Leviathan, part of the Leviathan. So you have the bloated bureaucracies, you have the three-letter agencies, right? You have the military-industrial complex. You have this giant system that is parasitic in nature, that is literally funneling energy and time and work from the from the American people. And if your country has a central bank, this is happening to you as well, and it's funneling that energy into the bureaucracies and into endless wars, into the military, right? That's what's happening right now. Ending the Federal Reserve is how we stop that, because those bureaucracies that don't produce anything, right? They don't make anything. And the whole war industry, all of that, which is completely reliant. You want to know why the whole thing with Boeing is happening? Why is that happening? Well, because the Boeing executives know that whatever happens, they still have giant, massive government contracts. It doesn't matter what happens, right? So that creates bloat, that creates incompetence, right? That creates a society where it's not capitalism, it's crony capitalism. The government gets to pick the winners and the losers. That creates situations like 2008, where, Wall Street just completely destroyed Main Street. And of course, Wall Street had no repercussions whatsoever. They bailed out the banks. The bank executives got bonuses, and then Main Street got poorer, right? That creates the situation during the pandemic where they're blaming everything and anything on inflation, but it's governments that are solely responsible for inflation because they're the ones that debase the currency. By the way, it wasn't the pandemic that shut down your business. It was the government that shut down your business, right? So the reason that the government has so much power, the reason that the government has this end all be all, the reason that politicians don't really give a shit about what their constituents have to say is because they're not incentivized to. They're incentivized to get as close as humanly possible to the money spigot. That's it. When you separate money from state, all of a sudden, the politician's only direct source of revenue is via direct taxation. And guess what happens when you go to the populace and say, hey, we're going to go to war with Ukraine, but the only way we're going to be able to afford it is if we raise your taxes by 5%. There will literally be a revolt the next day and say, the whole Ukrainian flag shit. No, people will be like, no, fuck that. Like, I already can't pay for things. I don't care about this war, right? So only things that the people actually agree in funding are actually paid for. And there's already an example of a society where this has happened. I can't emphasize El Salvador enough. It's not a coincidence that the first country that made Bitcoin legal tender, therefore fixing the base layer, has the most popular president in the Americas. It's not a coincidence that the same media that lied about the Trump assassination, right, or attempted assassination, also attacked Nayib Bukele and basically advocating for the gang members that were killing little children, right? And it also came out that they were satanic as well. Like, that's not a coincidence, ladies and gentlemen. This is a spiritual war, and fiat is the embodiment of evil. It is the embodiment of theft. It's theft built in, right? You're stealing from other people to pay for other things. That's not your energy. That's not your time. You're stealing it from people, right? Bitcoin is the embodiment of hope, peace, and prosperity because it protects the individual from theft. It doesn't matter how small you are. It doesn't matter how poor you are. If you can write down a 12-word seed phrase and store it in your mind, right, it's going to be very difficult to take it away from you. It protects private property rights. And anyone who is protecting the idea of fiat, you're essentially protecting the idea of slavery. You're protecting the idea of theft. That is what you're doing, right? So we are against this crazy Leviathan, this crazy system, but it's a lot weaker than people think. And right now it's trapped into a corner. And I want to read this tweet by Marty Bent because I think it's really, really great. And it kind of like, really kind of represents where we are. And he says, do not disregard the depravity of the regime. They're desperate and they will stoop to unconscionable levels to ensure they remain in power. After Trump's failed assassination, World War III is one of the few options left at their fingertips. So something to keep in mind. Here's Charles Haywood. He said the regime has lost control of the narrative. Control of the narrative is necessary for power. Remember the Nayib Bukele article. Their most important weapon is the control on the truth. Elon freed the bird. People don't buy into this bullshit anymore. X is the most downloaded news app on the App Store. People don't buy it anymore, right? So, like a wounded animal trapped into a corner, don't put it past them. You have to stay vigilant. Your vote matters in the US. I hate saying this as a Bitcoiner. The most important vote you can make is taking Bitcoin into self-custody, but your vote matters on November 7th or November 3rd, whenever the election is, especially if you live in one of the swing states. Your vote matters. Do you want a pro-Bitcoin president, or do you want a pro-slavery / central bank digital currency / central banking / war president? It's up to you. You know, so take action, take agency, and this is how we'll defeat the administrative state. Anyways,
wait, Nico, I just want to emphasize one last thing. You said it already, and I think we can't stress this point enough. The World War II fiat war machine has been going a lot longer than the end of the last World War. But what we're seeing right now is that is crumbling in real time, hence why there's so much panic on one side to try to control the narrative. And you guys as Bitcoiners, we say it every single Friday when we do the meme review, you guys are the frontline soldiers on propagating the truth. This is all memes all the way down. This is why it's so important for us to show up here every single day, for you guys to have these conversations, because we have the truth on our side. And everyone is realizing that the institutions, the media is all fake. It's all propaganda. And all we have to do is just continue to spread this truth, continue to expose the lies of the great Leviathan, and just show people there is a solution. And this is why it is simply Bitcoin, because it starts with the money, it ends with the money. And once we move forward and everyone's on a better money standard, then all of the crazy stuff we're seeing in real time cannot play out. Yes, of course, there will always be evil people, but I think the reign of the minority controlling the masses is starting to crumble. It's coming to an end, and you are on the front line. And 100%. There is two timelines right now. There's one of, perpetual digital slavery with CBDCs, and one where hopefully we can usher in a more free, individual, sovereign society where life is literally better for everyone moving forward. And this is why we do what we do. This is about freedom of humanity. You're either anti-human or you're pro-human. You're either anti-Bitcoin or you're pro-Bitcoin. You're either pro-CBDC or you're anti-CBDC, and the lines are becoming very clear day by day. This 100%. Is why it's so important to be a Bitcoiner right now.
100%. And it's not enough, by the way, for just Trump to win and whatever, because the other side could always take back, but the party of green could always take back power. It's Trump winning, and then the idea of ending the Federal Reserve being introduced into the mainstream consciousness, right? And there actually being an actual push for that to happen. And also just leaving Bitcoin alone. Bitcoin doesn't need regulation. Just leave it alone. Bitcoin will do its thing, and we won't win until we end the Fed. That's really the end goal here. So Trump is one step closer to that. You already had Thomas Massie, being orange pilled by Saifedean's book. He's introducing legislation. He's gotten the most support ever. Shout out to Ron Paul for starting the movement. But that's how we win. That's how we get rid of these psychopaths that are currently in power. That's how we get rid of them. We end their source of funding. We end their source of power, which is the central bank, which is the Federal Reserve. America has been held hostage since 1913, and we will free them. We will free America once we end the Fed.
Anyways, guys, the world has been held hostage. Exactly. But anyways, Nico, I need to give you some horns. Couple of horns.
All right, everybody. If you guys enjoyed the show, you know what to do. Smash that like button. Consider subscribing if you feel like we provided you value. We're Simply Bitcoin. I'm Nico. It's my co-host Optibi, and we'll be back tomorrow for a brand new episode. All right, everybody. Until then, take care.
Episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, on a mission to enable independence.